Hello, everyone. We are almost at the time to start Centro Institute's monthly webinar. Please just give us a few more minutes and we'll go ahead and get started, maybe a couple minutes after the half hour, as we've got some more folks that are dialing in right now. Thank you for joining us. Hello, you are logged on to the Centro Institute monthly webinar series. We will begin very shortly, just within the next couple minutes. While you're waiting, feel free to tweet at us or about us. Our username is @Centro, and if you'd like, you can include the hashtag Centro Institute. Just give us 1 or 2 more minutes as some more folks are still logging on, and we'll go ahead and get going. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Ryan Manchi. I lead the Centro Institute, and I am your host and your presenter for today. Welcome to the webinar series brought to you by the Centro Institute. If you have any thoughts to share in real time, you can tweet us. Our username is @Centro, and don't forget to add the hashtag Centro Institute. And we also have a questions tab that you can go through and add some questions in throughout the presentation, and we'll try to get through as many of the questions that we've got at the end of the presentation. So today we are talking about some very exciting subject matter. The presentation is really a continuation of the Centro's Digital Days of Summer, which I hope many of you have been enjoying all of the great content that we've put out and made available for you all. And this presentation is titled Gauge Your Programmatic Readiness. Do know that this is being recorded, so you will receive an email with a link to the on-demand stream as well as all the slides that we're using. And again, like I mentioned, if you've got questions during the presentation, definitely feel free to submit those in that question tab on that right side of the webinar app, and we'll try to see how many we can get through at the end of the presentation. I think many of you are hopefully familiar with Centro, but just to kind of quickly run through kind of who we are, if you stumble upon us on LinkedIn or somebody shared something on Facebook or Twitter with you, Centro provides software for digital advertisers. So our technology, it's designed to boost both media, team, and business performance by enabling advertisers to plan, buy, and analyze campaigns all on a single platform. We empower advertisers to control all of the major aspects of transactions with media partners through a centralized and collaborative system. And our amazing team of media specialists and digital experts provide our clients with raving fan service at really every stage of any campaign. Our monthly webinar series, which is what we're on today, includes experts that really cover the latest updates on noteworthy digital opportunities, vital changes within the advertising industry, and of course, learn best practices for you, the fast-moving marketer, all in 45 minutes or less. So we'll be able to let you get back on with your day after hopefully giving you some good information and some new knowledge that maybe you didn't have before the call. So today, gauging your programmatic readiness, what are we going to be talking about? My plan is I'm going to cover off on what is programmatic in-house and why more and more organizations are moving this way. And then I'm going to spend some time talking about how to really prepare and check your readiness. And then finally, we'll cover off on some things that I'd like for you to kind of keep in mind. And then we'll open it up for that Q&A. So just to set the stage, if you didn't realize it, and I'm guessing you did because you're on the call today, programmatic is big. The media dollars have definitely shifted towards programmatic, and we've got nearly this next year, by 2019, nearly 85% of all digital display will be bought programmatically, and that's going to account for nearly $57 billion. And I think we may get to the point, maybe not, I don't think this year, maybe not next year in 2019, but we'll get to the point where we don't necessarily differentiate maybe between or differentiate programmatic at all, because that's kind of the new standard. It is the way that we're buying more and more media, digital media, and we're starting to see more and more in the traditional media space, but we're going to focus a little bit more on the digital media side today. So programmatic technology, it's improved the offering and improved both the efficiency and the efficacy of media. And we're seeing higher quality inventory with even more and more diverse placement. So it's very exciting at this point in the industry, and how quickly this has accelerated in the number of dollars that have shifted over from a digital media perspective. And we're also starting to see this trend as programmatic has grown, that there's more and more folks, both agencies and also brands directly, that are looking to bring the programmatic buying in-house. In fact, this year in 2018, you've got nearly 44% of marketers who are committed to having programmatic in-house. And this is up from 32% last year and 28% the year before in 2016. So you see that continual growth and that continual shift towards bringing programmatic media in-house, that buying, the planning side of it. So why is this a thing? And we kind of feel like there's really three big areas of really improved performance that we're seeing drive this change of more and more of these marketers and this continued growth continuing to increase. The first, it's really around media performance. So programmatic media, if it's planned and bought correctly, it really offers a more universal view of that digital media plan, really overall better performance. And this is some research from Advertiser Perceptions that breaks down some of the top issues that marketers see programmatic buying solving. So you see at the top, improved targeting, more cost efficiency, more control, more unique targeting, all the things that I'm sure many of you on the phone that are dialed in are interested in and interested in improving and seeing expanded upon. And so this is really the promise that programmatic media and buying is delivering on. The second, beyond from a media performance, we look at team performance. And so programmatic media really offers some of these operational efficiencies that give planners and buyers really more control of their media, both in terms of buying and optimization. And it also increases their productivity by streamlining or even in some cases eliminating some of those tasks. There's an infectious media report that discovered that 84% of marketers want more control of their programmatic media. Not a big surprise that it's such a big number, but what I found fascinating is that only 17% of agencies have actually converged those more traditional digital direct buying teams with their programmatic buying team, even if one exists. So I view this as such a massive, massive opportunity really for any agency to start leveraging the talent on really both sides of the house, or starting to expand upon that talent, retaining the talent that they have, creating more career development and progress, and also expansion for their employees. And so the final area of performance that we see improved by programmatic media is around the business performance. And, not a big surprise here, really helping your agency's bottom line. And this is through cost savings at media and tech fees, and also impacting, again, some of those operational efficiencies, while also helping, I think this is one of the key areas, to really help future-proof your organization and be able to really prepare yourself where media is progressing, how it's bought, sold, the whole transaction side, but also just creating more of those efficiencies there, and also being able to offer maybe a more advanced offering to your clients and to the brands that you're working with. So when we think about bringing programmatic in-house, who are some of the groups that have done this effectively? Of course, there's the massive brands on the client side, the Netflix and the Targets and the P&Gs of the world. But we've also seen this really interesting shift, really a big shift of independent agencies who've done the evaluation, looked internally, the team that they've got, how their business is set up, where they want to grow, and they made that investment to really transform their agency. That's really what we want to spend some time talking about today, and looking at what do you need to do to be able to prepare for that. But I think one quick thing before we go further, when we talk about going in-house and bringing programmatic in-house, a lot of times you hear that more specifically on like a brand side, but you're also seeing that on agency side, saying, hey, I want to take more control of this. And what's interesting is that there was a study that talked to different marketers, and this idea of in-house means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, which is okay. But only 33%, a third of marketers, actually felt like in-house meant they have an internal team that's buying and managing campaigns via enterprise software, which I think is really fascinating, because I think a lot of times when people think in-house, that's what they think. But you've got 67% of other people that are thinking it means something a little bit different. So we'll talk about what some of those differences are, and I think help everybody understand that there's not really a right or wrong way to kind of think about it, but there's a few different ways to look at and evaluate what's going to make the most sense for your organization. So as we get into thinking about really the best ways to prepare, to evaluate, to really gauge your programmatic readiness, I've broken this down into five key areas for you all. The first, we're going to talk about business readiness, then people readiness, process readiness, technology readiness, and then finally, really thinking about future readiness and kind of what that means to really take those next steps. So let's get into it. When we think about preparing for in-house, the first is business readiness. So when you evaluate your agency's goals and you're having those conversations, or you're coming to that determination yourself, and you're trying to identify those different areas of improvement and really what's important. And for most agencies that we work with and that we talk to, and based upon a number of the different data that's out there, a big area of improvement is winning new business and retaining and growing that existing business. As I mentioned before, the business performance benefits also includes operational efficiencies. And what I think is so interesting is that 55% of marketers actually claim that they have more time for strategic planning, which should lead to business growth through smarter pitches and smarter campaigns as they're utilizing more and more programmatic media. It's saving them time there, and they're able to focus on the more complex tasks, the bigger tasks that are really going to grow that business, grow their business. And so I think another area that's worth pointing out is around really that expansion of offerings. And I've heard from several agencies that view this idea of kind of taking more control of their programmatic media buying as really a proactive step to not just be a forward-functioning organization, but also further prove their value to the brands that they're working with or may eventually be working with that are looking to potentially kind of pull in some of those responsibilities inside their organization. So it's that kind of proactive, you could say maybe defensive type of move, but I think it's more of a proactive type of move to say, hey, this is something that we can offer. We've been your trusted agency, or we can be your trusted agency, and we can continue to work with you as you want to grow your business and work towards the goals that you have and serve in that really great, unique agency function. The second is around people readiness. And I think this is such a crucial area to get really a solid and unbiased evaluation of your talent. As you look around your organization and you evaluate those current roles and the current individuals that really make up your agency, I think it's important to define what does that ideal structure look like that you want to build towards, and look to see how each role and each individual really need to evolve. And you want to map that out. You want to think about, are there going to be enough people to handle the number of campaigns that we've got today as we kind of bring this and take on more ownership, and then also what we're forecasting in the months ahead and how we want to grow. Are we going to be prepared and ready for that? And I think it's also important to identify what are those knowledge gaps and make sure that you're investing and you're planning to invest in the training. Ensure that there's that ongoing education to really help your people continue to learn, and make sure that your organization has that clear vision to really address all those changes that will occur, because there's going to be many, many changes that will continue to change as new technologies become available and new updates are made. And I think the reality is that most people, they fear change. I'm sure you guys have probably experienced this as you've instituted any sort of change and even followed some of those traditional change management practices. But what I believe is that what they think they want is really limited by what they believe is possible. So when there's that opportunity to share the vision and really inspire them, I think that's where something magical can happen, and they really get excited about what's next and how they can grow and be part of how the whole organization is shifting. The reality is that 40% of agencies feel like they don't have all the people with all the skills to execute their programmatic media campaign, which I don't think is a big surprise. I'm actually surprised it's maybe a little bit, it's that low. I think there's probably a lot of gaps that exist. So I think it's important to really kind of think through, are you going to train your current talent? Are you going to bring in new talent? And what we've discovered with many of the agencies that we've worked with is that it probably comes down to both. You want to train, you want to grow your existing team, but you're probably going to have to bring on some new folks. And so when you're evaluating your current people and you're looking at those gaps that exist, both in the short term and also in the long term, think through the strategy to bring in those new people. I feel like that seems like such a no-brainer, but there are going to be a number of new roles or even new departments that may need to be created. This could range from ad operations responsible for trafficking and tagging to analysts and data scientists who can evaluate the performance and offer up really incredible suggestions for optimizations. When we think about the training and education, when that comes to play, really I think defining what the desired outcome area is becomes critically important. So some of the areas to start with of what kind of that outcome base could look like could be around improved media performance. So, does this look like a lift in effective CPM, or just simply looking at just conversions by themselves, or view throughs? Also, are we able to work towards driving more knowledge sharing amongst the team so that they can really learn together and also discover each other's best practices? I think that's such a critical thing. People get excited about sharing where they've seen success and also learning from their peers. And then I think another area, maybe a greater focus on metrics and really how data can tell a greater story and get people more in that mindset, kind of thinking about that, because programmatic media becomes incredibly data rich. So there's a lot of possibilities to be able to kind of pull that in and really make some good sense out of it. And then I've listed out here some different topic categories that I think are good to kind of keep in mind. Again, just a starting off point, I feel like there's probably a number of others, but for that training and that ongoing education, and this is everything from those one-on-one topics to maybe more advanced hands-on implementation that, depending on really the knowledge level of your team, they may be very quick to master, or it may actually take some time to really have that solid comprehension. It may require multiple levels of advancement and evaluation. The next area of readiness that I think is very important is around process. And all these, you'll see they very much kind of go hand in hand with one another, but making sure that your people, they match up to the process and really minimize any potential overlap and ensure that there's no gaps between those different teams, but also making sure that there's that opportunity as you're educating, as you're training these people, to actually look to cross-train, right? And so this really helps with that initial adoption as well as that really ongoing adaptability as new technology, new features, new functionality are really added into the mix with whatever technologies that you're working with. So we've seen some really great success when internal champions can actually be identified early on, and they can actually help support the teams from within and really help refine ongoing those different processes. And this really helps, so it makes it so it's not just so much a top-down decision, it's kind of a universal, kind of a go-team type of attitude. And I think also making sure that there's a feedback loop, which can happen with that internal champion, but just even amongst the team for really continual dialogue from that initial rollout and really the ongoing changes that can occur. Next up, when it comes to technology readiness, this is really an area that you must look at the full programmatic supply chain, knowing that there are many, many parts outside of just the DSP. So as you look to kind of chart out some of those areas and determine which of them you want to bring in-house and own as well, I think depending on your clients and how your agency is structured, it may make more or less sense to want to have that tight integration with maybe a data management platform, a DMP, but also, what about an ad server? Do you have an existing relationship? How will they integrate with the DSP? Is there an existing integration in place so it's a little bit more streamlined, or is that going to be part of the process? What about other measurement and analytical tools that may be available and may make sense to actually incorporate as you build out your agency's tech stack? So all things that are worth kind of considering and mapping out that everybody's a little bit different and what those existing relationships look like, who they're currently working with, who they've worked with in the past, and how they're leveraging some of those different partners. And I think mapping out all of those, but also mapping out how really the data is going to be transferred between the various systems and really ensuring that it's going to play nicely with one another. And this includes everything from naming conventions to API integrations. It just becomes so critical to make sure that everything's kind of playing together. Finally, I think ensuring that there is support from your IT leadership and really the IT team will help tremendously. I've actually heard some stories about servers that were unknown by the IT team going down and getting a call saying, "Hey, we need this back up," and they're like, "I didn't know we had this. I didn't know we were responsible for this," or making sure that they're aware of potential upcoming integrations. We've heard stories about some of those integrations stalling out because the IT team they weren't brought on board early enough. They weren't aware of it. So I think making sure that they're up to speed, that they're aware of it, that there's that connection point that's happening. So this is a great quote from. We'll get this to lit up for you guys. This is a great quote that I came across in Ad Age, in an Ad Age article. What I think really does a great job of what programmatic technology can offer agencies today, and there's the age-old axiom that out of better, faster, cheaper, you can only have two. Those days are over. The new model in the next few years will be to create great work at the speed of the marketplace at an efficient cost. To do so, marketers will adopt more technology. And I think this is true really across the space, but particularly true when it comes to programmatic media and that programmatic technology that you as an agency leader can look to actually bring on and make sure that you're prepared and that you're adapting and adopting to where the future is headed. So when we think about future, this is really the final area of readiness, and this comes down to really selecting what I feel like is the best partner for your agency and looking at that evaluation criteria. And I think some of the criteria that we think is really important, it's actually more than just the tech itself. It's the best technology partners are the ones who have worked closely with many agencies to be able to onboard them. They're the ones that are going to be able to offer ongoing support. And this includes things like the overflow work, especially in the early days, and ongoing education and access to the experts that they have on staff, and also educational programs and materials and additional resources that are really going to help your team get from A to Z and as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. So from a tech perspective, I think those kind of other pieces that maybe don't seem so much core tech piece, those are incredibly important. But just the core tech side, I think making sure that there's a really smart and well-defined roadmap that you can get access to, and that you're also able to put in your requests from the must-haves of, hey, we can't move forward without this, or we're going to need this with this new client coming on board, to this would really be nice if we could have this. This would really help the process. I think also making sure that the interface from the planning to the reporting, it's going to be proprietary, but it shouldn't be perplexing to your team. It should make sense. It should be a smart workflow. Everything should work well together and have a really nice flow to it. And then I think also making sure that the integrations that are in place from the ad servers to the DMPs to the supply side sources, those all match up to what your needs are today, but also what your needs are as you're looking to grow and also win new business. I think that becomes critically important. So really, when we think about getting started, there's a few ways to kind of move forward as you've kind of evaluated, hey, the readiness, here's some different things that they need to map out. Knowing that programmatic in-house can actually mean different things to different people, as we kind of talked about before, there's really a few ways forward. The first, this idea around more of a hybrid model. And we talk about kind of a path to self-service. So this is focused on, it could be over the course of 3 months is typically what we see, but some cases this can be up to maybe 6 months, depending on staffing and alignment and different things that are happening. Maybe new business has been picked up. So that's kind of the first one, the hybrid type of model. The second, this idea of self-service. We as an organization, we've got the people in place, the processes defined, everyone's on board from the leadership to the IT to the data scientists. We're ready to rock and roll and just kind of move quickly and really adopt a new technology or kind of bring that technology in-house. The third is really around kind of managed services, which I think seems kind of interesting to think about it as a in-house type of model, but really I think that's kind of the point of saying that, hey, maybe we're not exactly ready for self-service today. Maybe it's 12 months from now, maybe it's 24 months from now. We know that programmatic media is very much the future, and that we want to be prepared for that. We want to have a greater level of transparency. We want to have good partners in place. We want to make sure that we're working with somebody that can offer up a solution that we could move to a self-serve type of model, that we're not going to be completely reliant on them forever, that we've got that option. I think making sure that that is an option and that's something that's available, that's critical. And the last one, I didn't even put it in here because you guys are on the call and you're committed to it. The fourth way to move forward is not moving forward at all and just getting left behind. So I know everybody's excited about one of these options, and hopefully at a point where you're evaluating what's going to make the most sense to really move forward for your organization, for your agency, so that you're best prepared. So really the key kind of takeaways from all this to share with you guys, to kind of recap, again, make sure that you find the right partner who's got that great technology, the great support, really the ongoing services that are going to help make you successful right out of the gate, and then also in the months and the years to come. And then I think really determining what is the best way to move forward so your organization doesn't get left behind. Is your business ready? Are your people ready? Are the processes and the technologies ready to take over all of your programmatic buying and really being able to pull that in? Do you need to explore maybe more of a hybrid model over the course of the next 3 or 6 months? Or does it make sense to make sure that you've got a partner that's going to be able to offer those managed services with that option for self-service maybe further down the road? And obviously, I think it goes without saying that we're happy to at Centro work with you and make sure you and your team feel confident and excited about the next steps. But it's important for you to explore what's going to make the most sense for you, and make sure that you feel comfortable with the partner that you're working with, and really moving forward. So with that, that really kind of covers off everything. A kind of quick, good, solid 30 minutes there with you all. I really thank you all for your time and for listening in. So what I'd like to do now is to jump into some questions. So again, please note that there's a question tab on the webinar app on the right-hand side, and you can submit there, and we'll try to get to a few of the questions before we let you get on with the rest of your day. So we'll see how many questions we are able to get through here. The first one that we're getting, given the 3 ways forward for programmatic, the managed, the self-service, hybrid, what is Centro seeing as the most popular? Well, this is kind of interesting, and it's really been a shift. Thanks for that question. We're seeing a shift from what has been quite a bit of managed to a lot of folks moving towards self-service and kind of that path to self-service. There's definitely a lot of folks that we work with that have moved over that are full self-service that we continue to work with, which I think is super exciting. And a majority of those folks really work through a hybrid kind of path to self-service type of model. So while today I would say it's probably mostly on the managed services side, we're seeing a really nice shift over to more and more folks that want to have more of that control, really excited about the technology that we're able to offer up, and really working towards that kind of path to self-service. So thanks for that question. So let me look. Is there a minimum spending level that an agency should meet prior to bringing on a DSP? Yeah, I mean, I think, we've seen this range. It could be on a monthly level or a yearly level. We've seen it as down low as maybe like 10, 15, 20K a month from a self-service perspective, which I would say is fairly low, all the way up to some clients that are spending over $1 million a month. So there's quite a range that's there. I think a lot of the technologies I can speak most to Centro to our basis technology, there's a lot of flexibility, I think, with that, as long as there's that kind of that threshold. So hopefully that answers your question there. Here's one. In terms of tech readiness, think all the world regions, specifically LATAM. So we had a number of LATAM folks on the call today. Thank you guys for joining us. Can imagine the possibilities to successfully integrate technology without mistreating data and important info between platforms, seeing differences in the features and interfaces of some important partners in each region. Yeah, I mean, I think this is critically important to make sure that the partner that you're working with, that they've got support for the region that the majority of your operation is, and also where you may look to expand. That, especially from a supply side perspective, and some of the data integrations that they're there, I find it pretty fascinating that some of the partners that we work with, what they've got available, what they've got access to, it really varies quite a bit. When you look at Latin America, I think, obviously within the last couple months, we've seen quite a few changes happening in Europe with the GDPR and what you've got available there. I think some of that's going to be consistent across the board with some of the challenges, but I do think it's important to make sure that that's a component and a criteria when you're evaluating a partner, to understand what those integrations are today, and then also, again, like I said, looking at that roadmap and where things are headed. And if there's some things that are missing, see if there's that possibility for some of those future integrations. So hopefully that answered that question there. Let me see. Oh gosh, here. Okay, here's one. I run a mid-sized agency in a smaller market. Don't necessarily have the talent in-house or in the market to support going self-service. Have you seen other agencies? How have you seen other agencies deal with this? This is something that we've actually seen quite a bit and becomes a challenge. I think one of the things that maybe I missed kind of speaking to from a talent perspective, again, I really encourage you to look at your team that you've got. I think there may be some folks that are really excited to learn and kind of take on some more things, even if they're in maybe some different types of roles. So I think that's important, and know that there could be some kind of onboarding, some training type of process there. But when it comes to bringing in talent, from out of the market, that is a critical component, and I think it's something that is important to evaluate, because some of these guys, we think about like adding some data scientists. These are not cheap hires. Some of these guys, they're in high demand, and depending on what market, what city you're in, maybe a little bit of a challenge to be able to recruit them in a market. You may have to pay them a little bit more. So I think that goes into part of that planning. I think there's even an opportunity to do some evaluation, look at your internal hiring team, whether it's the HR type of function, or it's some outside partners, to kind of see, hey, what is the appetite? What is the opportunity to be able to pull some of these folks in? But what I will say is that many of the mid-sized and even larger agencies and some of the smaller and kind of mid-markets, we've seen some really good success where they've brought in some folks that they're looking for a change of pace. So I think that's something to look at and to evaluate. In moving towards a self-service model, what are the minimum key roles you'd recommend having in place personnel-wise? Media buyer, analyst, reporter. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely get you a list and kind of follow up with what we see work. It's difficult, though, I think sometimes just to some of the titles themselves will vary. We've seen that vary quite a bit from agency to agency and what the functions are. But as far as like the core functions that are there, we've seen some movement towards, hey, our buyer's going to take on, some of the baseline analysis or take on some of the trafficking duties. We've got less of a need for an individualized ad operations role, and we want to move everybody towards being more of a media strategist overall. So there's some things that I can follow up specifically the person that asked that with some of the things that we've seen work well. But I do think that's important as you map out your organization, look at your existing people, look at your existing teams to see, hey, here's what the needs are going to be and who's going to fill in those different areas to really be able to identify some of those gaps. Let me see what else we've got here that I can get to. We talked about that. Somebody's asking about some documentation for our API connectivity. Can definitely follow up with you on that, specifically what Basis can offer there, and kind of talk about some of the technical integrations. Definitely happy to help on that side. I believe we do have an online wiki that you can get access to, but we'll be sure to send that over. Here's one. There's actually a couple that are around this. How much would an agency save to insource if we were spending $20K a month for clients? We had another one talking about how agency leaders are proving the value and actually making some of these investments. This is something that I think is something that we as a company, Centro, are working towards really being able to kind of prove out specifically and show, hey, here's very specific numbers where you can input in, here's all the different elements and be able to get some sort of output. My guess is that it's probably still going to be somewhat directional with that, but what we've heard anecdotally from many of the agencies that we've worked with is that they've seen really tremendous success. I think some of it is a little bit of expectation management. If you're able to shift the team over, get them onboarded, 6 months, 12 months, they're running on all cylinders, and then you really start to win new business. Depending on what that new business that's won, that can tip the meter a little bit. But when it comes down to some of the tech and the media fees, depending on who you're working with, it could be a substantial amount of savings, where we've seen anywhere of some of the margins up to 60-80% with some of the folks that we've worked with in the past, where they didn't even realize what they were paying for, where they thought they were paying for working media, and really they were paying for a lot of different people. They were paying an outside company who was licensing a DSP, who was licensing all these other pieces. So they saw a pretty quick impact that could range in the 10, 20, 30% increase in effective working media, which I feel like is pretty incredible. So let's get to one more. What is this? Roughly what percentage of programmatic do you see as RTB, real-time bidding, and does a successful campaign include both RTB and guaranteed ad impressions? Yeah, I mean, I think so to answer the second question, does a successful campaign include both RTB and guaranteed ad impressions? Depending on the goals of the campaign, it very much could, but there are some cases where, hey, this maybe does not make as much sense to have the guaranteed impressions. Let's do more of an audience-based buy and be able to have some dynamic bidding in place that it's going to make a little bit more sense, especially if you're looking at some different types of advanced targeting that you want to incorporate that you could maybe only get or could get a little bit more efficiently from an RTB perspective. So really depending on the campaign, that's something that we from a kind of a more of a managed services perspective kind of offer that up. I think one of the things that, again, I don't want to make this too much about Centro and about Basis and keep it more educational, but one of the things I love when I look at the various platforms that are out there that Basis does really well is that it incorporates both the RTB, that programmatic side, as well as the guaranteed direct. So you're able to actually see that all in one single dashboard and set that up. And most of the other DSPs that are out there don't offer that and don't offer that level of integration. So I think that really helps where you're able to actually set it up, maybe both the RTB and the guaranteed side, and see how it's performing, and see if you want to maybe optimize between some of those and what you are able to optimize in a little bit more of a straightforward type of view. So good question there, Chris. I really appreciate everybody joining us today with some fantastic questions. Didn't get a chance to get through all of these. Some are a little bit more specific that I think a few of you guys had. So I'll definitely follow up with some of that additional material, or have some folks follow up with you guys individually. But again, this presentation, the recording, and also the slides will be sent out to you via email, I believe, later today. So be on the lookout for that, and also a survey. And we appreciate you guys giving us feedback on your experience. And also be on the lookout in your inbox for updates on future upcoming Centro Institute webinars. This concludes our presentation, and this has been the webinar series brought to you by Centro Institute. I'm Ryan Manchi, and I'm happy you joined us today. Have a great day. Thank you all.